There is a land older than almost every story we tell about it, a high plateau between the sea and the desert, where the wind moves over the stone the same way it moved 1,000 years ago. Once, there were no cities here and no names, only a plain, a ridge on the horizon, and a single snow-capped peak that would watch everything that came next. On this land, palaces rose and crumbled into dust. Fire came, and faith, and conquerors from the east and the west. And every time all seemed lost, something remained, something that could not be burned. This is the history of Persia. 25 centuries in 20 minutes. First came small villages in the foothills of the Zagros, smoke from cook fires, herds of goats, clay and patience. People learned to build, to count, to write. In the city of Susa, scribes pressed cuneiform into wet clay while the world was still young. Then, from the north, new people arrived. The Aryans, herders with their wagons and their horses. They settled the plateau and gave it a name. The word Iran means simply the land of the Aryans. From these newcomers, kingdoms grew. The first to rise was Media, the fortress of Ecbatana on its hillside, walls in ring after ring. But the strong always have enemies, and on the horizon an army was already gathering, marching toward their gates. The land was learning an old lesson. Empires come and go, but the people who dig channels through the dry plain to bring the water, they remain. And then comes the man with whom everything begins. A young prince from the region of Fars. Simple robes, a small retinue, his eyes on the road of a great empire below. His name was Cyrus. The world would come to call him Cyrus the Great. He led his army with a calm, unhurried authority, the kind that needs no proof. The gates of Ecbatana opened before him, not in fear, but in welcome. The first great kingdom joined his rising empire. And still he pushed westward. An endless column of spearmen in scale armor, dust rising to the horizon. Ahead lay the greatest city of that world, Babylon. By night, the Persians came up the bed of a river they had turned away from the walls. An assault at the blue-glazed gates, torches, the blare of horns. The old order fell. But what came next is what made Cyrus more than a conqueror. He did not destroy, he set them free. On a clay cylinder, a decree was written, of mercy and of return. The peoples taken into exile could go home. Whole nations streamed out of Babylon toward distant hills, hope on their faces. And the king himself built a garden, water in straight channels, cypress trees, order carved out of a dry land. The first paradise, a garden that became our very word for heaven. When Cyrus died, they laid him in a simple stone tomb on the plain of Pasargadae. No gold, no colossus. Stone, wind, and grass. The empire he left reached all the way to Egypt. Ships on the Nile, cavalry before the pyramids. Two great worlds met under a brilliant sun, and royal masons carved the victories into the sheer cliff of Behistun, a message meant to be read across the whole realm. An immense power from the Indus to the Aegean, 20 provinces bound together by roads. Along the royal road, couriers galloped, changing horses at every station, and nothing could stop them. At the heart of the empire rose a city with no equal, Persepolis. Thousands of workers raised stone columns and cedar beams, and so the great hall of the Apadana grew, a forest of columns, reliefs in lapis and gold. Each spring the envoys of every nation climbed its stairs. Medes, Lydians, Egyptians, Bactrians, Indians, bearing gifts for the new year, for the festival of Nowruz. Music, dancers, tables laden with fruit and flowers. The empire was celebrating life itself. At the walls stood the immortals, 10,000 royal guards, always kept at exactly 10,000. A fleet lay anchored in distant bays. The empire had reached the sea. It stood at its very peak. But every peak has its shadow. From the west came a new army, the tight ranks of the Macedonian phalanx, a wall of spears. Two armies met on a dusty plain, and when the dust settled, it was already decided. Persepolis burned. Columns stood black against the fire, embers rising into the night sky. The royal court fled down an empty road at dawn. The empire of Cyrus had fallen. Yet the man who destroyed it, Alexander, came to the tomb of Cyrus and bowed his head. He honored the founder rather than erasing him. He wanted to join the two worlds. Thousands of Greeks and Persians married on a single day. Greek cities rose on the plateau, white marble grafted onto Persian brick, a living fusion of two cultures. And time moved on. A Greek marble statue slowly weathered under the blowing sand, as the land itself took its own back. From the east, riders returned, the Parthians, horse archers of the steppe. Wild, free, swift. Their famous Parthian shot, an arrow loosed backward at full gallop, became a legend. Beside them stood the heavy cavalry, the cataphracts, riders and horses sheathed in scale. Parthia sat astride the Silk Road and grew rich. The capital of Ctesiphon on its wide river. Bazaars where traders of every face bargained in the sun. Even Rome was humbled. Captured Roman eagles were carried into the Parthian court as trophies. But the pride of the nobles tore the realm from within. Rival camps on the same plain, banners drawn up against banners. One age was ending, and another was being born. In its place rose a new power, the Sasanians. The first king of the new dynasty, Ardashir, took the crown before a sacred fire. This was the golden age of ancient Iran. They raised the single greatest brick vault of the ancient world, a colossal Iwan, beneath which people looked like ants. Sacred fire burned in the temples. Priests in white, cloths over their mouths, tended the flame. Kings carved their triumphs into the cliffs. The defeat of Rome, an emperor kneeling. Caravans carried silk from the east. Nobles hunted in the marshes at dawn. The realm was rich and sure of itself. And then everything changed within a single generation. From the south, out of the desert, came a new faith and a new army. Under the banners of Islam, the Sasanian Empire fell. The fire in the temples went dark. The old world ended. But, and this is the heart of this land's story, Iran did not vanish. It changed the conqueror. There came an age they would call golden. In Baghdad and across the Islamic world, Persian minds lit a fire of knowledge the world had never seen. Here worked Al-Khwarizmi. From his name and his book came the word algorithm, and from the title of his work, Al-Jabr, the word algebra. Here Ibn Sina, whom the West called Avicenna, wrote works of medicine that would teach physicians for 500 years. Poets wrote verses that live even now. Ferdowsi almost single-handedly saved the language. In his Shahnameh, the Book of Kings, he preserved the Persian word when it might have disappeared. Astronomers charted the heavens, libraries filled with manuscripts. The conquered people had become the teachers of the conquerors. New rulers came from the east, the Seljuks, Turkish sultans. Under them, the poet and mathematician Omar Khayyam measured the year with an accuracy astonishing for his time, and wrote quatrains about wine, time, and mortality. In the mountains, the assassins held out, the fortress of Alamut on its unreachable crag, an order whose name became a word in many languages. the land was strong again and complex. And then from the east came a storm like no other, the Mongols. Cities built over centuries vanished in days. Libraries burned, the canals were choked with earth. It seemed this time that the end was real, that the land would not rise again. But it rose. And once more, the conquerors themselves became Persian. The grandsons of those who had burned the cities built mosques, sheltered poets, spoke Persian. The land had absorbed the storm again, and out of the ashes grew, perhaps, the most beautiful thing of all, the Safavids. Their capital, Isfahan, became one of the loveliest cities in the world. A vast square, turquoise domes, tilework so fine you could gaze at it for hours. They said, Isfahan is half the world. Under the Safavids, Shia Islam became the spine of Persian statehood, the thing that defines Iran even today. Carpets, miniatures, poetry, bridges with arches where people gathered in the evenings. But peace never lasts. There came a warlord, Nader Shah, brilliant and merciless. He led armies as far as India and returned with treasures the like of which had never been seen, including the famous peacock throne. He raised Persia high. But that ascent rested on a single man. When he was gone, everything fell apart once more. The Qajar dynasty came, a court in luxury, but a world that was changing faster than they were. New predators pressed at Persia's borders, the empires of the north and the west, drawing maps across another people's land. A new century was beginning, and with it, a new struggle. In 1906, the people rose to demand a constitution and a parliament. They wanted law to stand above the will of the king. The Majlis, the first parliament, opened, and this was the beginning of modern Iran. And then, beneath this land, they found the thing that would change everything: oil. The first derricks rose over the plain in 1908, and from that day, Iran's fate was bound to the black liquid beneath its feet and to the foreign hands reaching for it. The Qajars gave way to a new dynasty, the Pahlavis. Reza Shah built a modern state. Roads, railways, schools, factories. Tehran changed before people's eyes. Women entered universities for the first time. But the changes came from above and fast, and not everyone welcomed them. And the oil drew foreign eyes. In 1953, a government that tried to return the oil to the people was overthrown, with foreign hands at work. That wound is remembered to this day. Reza Shah's son led the country toward wealth and glamour, skyscrapers, cars, shop windows. But beneath the shine, a pressure was building that the crown did not see or did not wish to see. And in 1979, it all broke open. Millions poured into the streets. A monarchy that had ruled in one form or another for thousands of years fell in a matter of weeks. The Islamic Republic was born. Iran became something else, within and in the eyes of the world. And almost at once, war came. 8 long years on the western border. A whole generation grew up under its shadow. Cities in mourning, but a people that endured. And so we come to the present day, to a country ancient and young at the same time. Tehran spreads out at the foot of the mountains, vast, loud, alive. The Azadi Tower, the Milad Tower, millions of lights in the night. The bazaars are full of saffron and carpets, as they were 1,000 years ago. In the cafes, people argue and laugh. The young, half the country, look both back and forward. Every spring, Nowruz comes again. The same festival they kept at Persepolis. Families around a laid table, flowers, a new year 25 centuries old. Through all of it, fire, ruins, empires, this day has survived to reach us. This is what this land tells us. Armies came, Greeks, Arabs, Mongols. Palaces burned, crowns fell. The faiths and the languages of the rulers changed. But every time, the conqueror became part of Persia, and not the other way around. The stone weathered away, while who these people were remained. And over all of it stands the mountain, Damavand, the snow-capped peak that saw the first dawn over an empty plateau and sees the lights of Tehran tonight. Empires rose at its feet and passed into dust, and it stands, as it has always stood, calm, eternal, 25 centuries. Fire, ruin, rebirth, again and again. A land that has outlasted every age that passed over it. This was the history of Persia, and it is not over yet.